When I think of a small business owner, I often picture someone creating, packing, and shipping their products from the comfort of their own home. But if you don't have the space or time to create, pack, and ship out your product, can you still start a business? The answer is yes. Today, we'll explore how you can build a remote business from the ground up by outsourcing key operations right from the start. We'll cover both the challenges you might face so you're prepared for what lies ahead and the benefits. Someone who took this exact route is Marilyn Yang, the co-founder and CEO of Fun Gal Snacks, the company behind Papadelics. As a lifelong picky eater and mushroom enthusiast, Marilyn saw a unique opportunity to introduce mushrooms to the snacking world. And she managed to take her product from concept to market, all without a traditional office space.
I think we've always had in our back of our minds that we wanted to start a business at some point in time. We just never quite had the right idea. And so it was during COVID where we were at the time based in New York City. We were very much so stuck in our apartments at the time. And it was one of those very serendipitous ideas where the highlight of our days at the time were going to the grocery store. And we started trying basically every snack in the snack aisle. And there's been a lot of veggie snacks out there over time, right? I mean, I think we've all eaten kale chips. And we started to see some more interesting stuff like beet chips. And as lifelong mushroom lovers, it just kind of hit us one day. Oh, I wonder if someone's made a mushroom chip by now. And it was one of those things that we thought existed already because it didn't sound that crazy, right? I mean, there's kale chips. Why shouldn't there be mushroom chips too? And so that kind of set us off on this adventure just as us as consumers to essentially find a mushroom chip for us to eat.
Their search for mushroom chips led them to realize that they weren't the only ones looking for this product. So they decided to make it themselves.
We had a conceptual idea what the product should be. So we wanted a whole mushroom to indicate that it isn't necessarily cut with anything else. To show the consumer that it's a whole mushroom. There's no funny business. It really is a mushroom. But also to have that crunchy chip-like texture.
At the time, Marilyn and her husband were living in a small New York City apartment and working long hours. They didn't have the space or time to experiment with recipes at home, so they made the decision to outsource their operations. Through a friend of a friend, they got connected with a food startup consulting firm that specialized in research and development. And with the firm's help, Marilyn and her husband began turning their idea into reality.
We kind of explained our end goal, and then we had to test a bunch of different types of mushrooms, and then ultimately getting to the different flavors that we wanted to finalize. We're basically always just on Zoom calls, and we were just sending back and forth various samples and then jumping on Zoom calls to provide live feedback.
Once they perfected the recipe, the next big step was finding a third-party co-packer. Luckily, their consulting firm introduced them to one.
And so it was a warm intro to begin with, so we at least were on solid ground there.
But even with that connection, things didn't go according to plan.
For a period of time when we first reached out to them, they just weren't entertaining new products just because of certain supply chain issues, labor issues. They wanted to make sure they were satisfying demand from their existing customers. And on top of that, we were a startup without anything at the time because all we had was maybe a couple prototypes. We were still in development of the product branding. And so we didn't have much, I guess, other than the fact that we had incorporated and still me and my husband at the time.
Marilyn and her husband were trying to get a test run in place, but the co-packer wasn't committing to a date.
We didn't necessarily want to delay everything else because this was the time where certain ingredients, right, would take a year or at least 6 months to arrive. If we waited until the co-packer committed, then they might not be willing to wait for our ingredients for a year or whatever it may have ended up being. And so we got to a point eventually where there's at least a truckload worth of mushrooms just waiting to go somewhere. And I think seasoning blends too. And there was a period of time where we were scrambling like, oh no, what if they don't take on our product? Where are we going to send all of these ingredients? And so we were making backup plans even for our parents to store some of the ingredients in their garages, because this was also, it was kind of crazy, but most of the third-party warehouses we spoke to didn't have that much space just to store random ingredients. And so we were really put in a bind.
Imagine the stress. Your business is hanging in the balance and you consider your parents' garage as an emergency warehouse. But instead of backing down, Marilyn and her husband made a bold move.
I think it was one of those business risk moments where we decided we're just going to tell the co-packer that we're sending them ingredients and let them tell us no. And lo and behold, that was the push that I guess our dialogue with them needed to actually move them towards committing, because I think that was what ultimately demonstrated to them that we were serious. And since then, it's been a very smooth relationship, but it was one of those very crazy moments where obviously I think thinking back now, it feels like a snapshot in time, but this was like an emergency situation we were dealing with over the course of, call it 2 to 3 weeks. And so, I mean, it all worked out in the end, but it was definitely a big risk we had to take at the time.
For anyone starting a business, you've got to get comfortable with risk. It's not just part of the journey, it's often the fuel that moves you forward. Marilyn and her husband knew that. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions, they took the plunge and made things happen. After that little bump in the road, Marilyn had secured all their third-party operations, and they were ready to finish their product.
We had both the third-party warehouse and our co-packer spread out all around the country. So we were in New York, co-packer in the Midwest, third-party warehouse on both the East and West Coast.
So here they were, Marilyn and her husband, running their business with moving parts all over the country. Mainly because they wouldn't have been able to create their product if they tried making it from home.
It requires special machinery that doesn't exist for a normal kitchen. So it can only be made in a large-scale industrial setting, at least at scale. And so I think it was a blessing and a curse in that because of the cooking method we chose, we were forced to go into large-scale production and also work out those kinks quicker. And we knew right off the bat that the product could be produced at scale, because that's the risk too. Sometimes when you make something in your own kitchen for a period of time, you then realize that it's not possible to translate that process from a food production standpoint into larger scale production.
Marilyn's decision to go with third-party operations right off the bat was a big gamble. They could have ended up with way too much product and a lot of wasted money if things didn't take off. But it actually saved them from the usual startup headaches that can happen when scaling up. From day one, they knew their product could be produced in large quantities, and going big from the start allowed them to grow faster.
We were able to essentially then go after larger retail accounts much quicker. If we, for whatever reason, tried to start shipping out of our apartment, we would have outgrown that very quickly and then had to figure out a solution anyway. So at some level, we would have, even though we started out with third-party logistics, I think we would have needed to move in that direction anyway, pretty quickly after we launched. And so I think it just set us up off the bat well for the growth that we've been able to handle since then.
And was there an unexpected challenge to starting using third-party logistics and having your operations spread out across the states?
Because we were all over the place, it was difficult to pinpoint where exactly we were, quote unquote, headquartered, because for various tax purposes and future capital raising purposes. And so I think that made it difficult for us to qualify for certain. So, for example, certain grocery stores will have locally made programs, and a lot of them are very explicit about it, right? It's where your product is made.
So, figuring out if you qualify for certain opportunities that are location-based, like getting featured on a retail store as a locally made small business, can be a little more complicated. But sometimes it can open up opportunities.
We've been able to qualify for certain Midwestern grocery chains programs whose our product is made in the Midwest, even though we're not anywhere in the Midwest, our product is produced there.
And other times,
certain other retailers or programs are a lot more vague about it. And then it's been hard to pinpoint exactly where we qualify. And so I think we've taken the strategy where we'll at least try in areas that we know we have a tie in, but that hasn't always been the case. And I think it's just one of those things where back before remote work became popular, this wasn't an issue that anyone was thinking about. So I think maybe some of the industry or some of these resources out there just haven't evolved to reflect the fact that something like what we've been able to do with national operations is so possible even from the startup stage.
If you're planning on starting out remotely with third-party operations, there's another challenge to navigate: balancing it all. Especially if, like Marilyn, you're working a 9 to 5 while you're running your business.
I think it's just ongoing. Depending on the day, I might just need to focus on my day job, or today I just need to focus on household chores. And so it's getting to a point where you are thinking about all of these things all the time, but you, on a daily basis, or even maybe hourly basis, evaluating what needs your attention more. So I think it requires very aggressive prioritization for sure, but also understanding that everything is kind of more of a marathon than a sprint. So I think when we first started, we would definitely get caught up in a lot of the little things, especially for the business, that would maybe leak into the rest of our life. But now I think we've gotten better at understanding that there's going to be ups and downs to every aspect of life, and definitely ups and downs to the business. And so not letting that affect us too much elsewhere.
Marilyn gave us a glimpse into what it's like to start a remote company with third-party operations. While it certainly comes with its risks, something every entrepreneurial journey faces, starting big, like Marilyn did, can be the key to successfully launching and growing your business. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about us by sending them a link to this episode. And I'd love to know what you think, or if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about. So send us an email at thisissmallbusiness@amazon.com. Or leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts with your thoughts. Maybe you'll get to hear your review on the show. That's it for this episode of This is Small Business, brought to you by Amazon. Until next time, I'm your host, Andrea Marquez. Hasta luego, and thanks for listening. This is Small Business is brought to you by Amazon with technical and story production by Jar Audio.
Address. News. Artnet. Com. Secure and validated. News. Art World dropdown. Market dropdown. Podcast. About. Stray Dogs Pyramid Climb goes viral and raises concerns for Giza's ancient monuments. The viral clip highlights the unexpected risks Egypt's ancient wonders face. From wildlife intrusion to preservation challenges, a dog sits outside near the Great Sphinx and the ancient Egyptian King Khafu's pyramid at the Giza necropolis on the outskirts of Egypt's capital. Photo by Amurmaker/AFP via Getty Images by Sophia Hellstrom, October 22, 2024. A video of a stray dog scaling one of the pyramids of Giza in Egypt has gone viral on the internet. What began as a surprising sight for paragliders flying over the 4,500-year-old pyramid of Khafre quickly became an online sensation. The video, shared by one of the paragliders, shows the dog darting back and forth on the very top of the 449.5-foot-tall ancient monument. Beyond its heartwarming humor, the video also raises serious concerns about protecting one of the world's most cherished heritage sites. Advertisement. Address. News. Artnet. Com. Secure and validated. Join Artnet Pro News. News. Art World dropdown. Market dropdown. Podcast. About. Artists for artist Anastasia Samilova. Florida's grit and glamour art concentrated Americana. Curated by Mia Feynman. Florida's Anastasia Samilova and Walker Evans at the Metropolitan Museum of Art offers a cross-generational conversation about the Sunshine State. A white woman with brown hair stands in white button-down shirt front of a photograph with water. Anastasia Samilova, Portrait, 2024, by Katie White, October 17, 2024. Artist Anastasia Samilova will tell you Florida is more than just a destination, it's a state of mind. The photographer, who has been living in Miami since 2016, has focused her lens on the surreal grit and glamour of her adopted home for nearly a decade. Advertisement. Scroll to continue with content. Miami itself is a studio for me, said Samilova in a recent conversation. I was just shooting yesterday. I realized there was a particular image that I needed, she said. I know every street now by heart. Every little plant that's intruding. The best of Artnet news in your inbox. Sign up for our daily newsletter. Her decisively framed and, mostly, color photographs distill tensions and subtleties of an Edenic environment suspended between the pastel escapism and fantasy of a tourist's dreams and the Southeast's vulnerable ecological underbelly, which the current hurricane season has only further exposed. Anastasia Samilova, Gator, 2017. Courtesy of the artist. Consider, for instance, Gator, 2017, an almost serene photograph of an alligator seen floating, from below, in hazy green waters. The image is tranquil, albeit for the predator in plain sight. This photograph was the cover image for her 2019 book Flood Zone, published by Steed, which captured the lush beauty and creeping decay of life lived amid rising tides, on the precipice of what's to come. curated by Mia Feynman, now on view at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, brings the artist's contemporary visions of Florida into context with those taken by the quintessential American photographer Walker Evans in the 1930s, 1940s, and into the 1970s, highlighting the continuous pull that Florida has exerted over the photographic imagination. Anastasia Samilova, Flamingo Reflection, 2018. Courtesy of the artist. Evans, who is best remembered for his Depression-era scenes of American life, almost made Florida a recurrent subject. In 1934, when he first traveled to the state, he wrote tellingly to a friend, "Florida is ghastly and very pleasant where I am." Evans would travel to Sarasota in 1942 on a commission for journalist Carl Bickel, whose book The Mangrove Coast recounted the vibrant history of the region. Evans' images from that project were republished in the 2000 book Walker Evans, Florida. Anastasia Samilova, Gun Ring, New York, 2024. Courtesy of the artist. As for her photographic influences, she finds a kinship with pioneering photographer Berenice Abbott. In 1954, Abbott set off on a road trip down US Route 1, documenting her journey. These photographs from this series were on view at the Wolfsonian in 2017, a show Samilova saw and felt moved by. For her part, she is now working on her own series focused on the Atlantic coast, stretching from Charleston to the Hamptons to New England. The region she's found most compelling so far? In Washington, D.C., the subjects I encountered were absolutely incredible, she said with a laugh. It's been mind-blowing. The best of ArtNet news in your inbox. Sign up for our daily newsletter. More trending stories, artists. For artist Anastasia Samilova, Florida's grit and glamour are concentrated Americana art fairs. The Blockbuster Art Povera show up next. George Rui has landed. With a Blockbuster Art Povera show in town, dealers at Art Basel Paris cash in on famously hard-to-sell movement. The celebrated Italian artistic era, deeply focused on ephemeral materials, is neither cheap nor easy to acquire. Tornabuoni Art. Courtesy of Art Basel, by Devorah Lauder, October 17, 2024. Art dealers at Art Basel Paris are seizing the opportunity to bring several historic Art Povera works to the fair, plus post-Art Povera creations influenced by them. The fair opens this week in the French capital at the Grand Palace. Advertisement. Scroll to continue with content, with a major Art Povera exhibition at the Bourse de Commerce, Pinel Collection in Paris. The niche, post-war Italian conceptual art movement of the late 1960s and 1970s, is in the spotlight, enjoying some overdue, wider recognition. The best of ArtNet news in your inbox. Sign up for our daily newsletter. It's a noticeable shift for the historic, anti-establishment movement that famously favored ephemeral and difficult to move, and simple materials that were not made with a commercial gallery space in mind. And while cherished by institutions, Art Povera draws a dedicated, but limited following of connoisseurs, rather than a broader art collecting public. For one, it doesn't look great on Instagram. It doesn't have the shimmer of pop or minimalism, made commercial successes in the US and Northern Europe. We've been besieged by people, and getting loads of interest, said Senior Director Joe LaPlaca at Cardi Gallery, at Art Basel Paris on the VIP preview, Wednesday. He said the gallery immediately sold 2 large Janus Kaunalis sculptures made in 1994 to a Dutch museum by midday, offered at €300,000, $326,000 each, on the higher end of price points for the artist, who remains undervalued. There are a few other Art Povera pieces that are definitely going to go, he added. Around the city, there are further shows in commercial spaces, both at Tornabuoni Art and Galleria Continua. Everyone is here, from all corners of the earth, LaPlaca added. While things might have been difficult in the past, this is a turning point. The gallery is also showing works by Art Povera mainstays Michelangelo Pistoletto and Giulio Paolini. La Placa said such strong market interest in the movement, though stable overall, has not been the scenario over the last year. The beginning of the year was not bad, but it just kind of dropped off, and it's going to pick up. I'm very optimistic. Aliero Bodi stands out as the movement's market-friendly darling, whose famous, embroidered mappa series set a record for the movement when a piece sold for $8.83 million at Sotheby's in 2022. One such mappa piece of his, made in 1989-91, covers the entire, large wall at Tornabuoni Arts booth at the fair. It was sold by early morning on preview day, after being reserved in advance. The gallery could not share the price. To make these vibrant pieces, Bodi commissioned Afghan women embroiderers to weave shapes and colors of flags on a world map that changed according to the geopolitics of the day. Up next, George Rui has landed his first Hauser and Wirth show at age 30. What's behind his stratospheric rise? The UK artist is one of the youngest artists on the Mega Gallery's roster. He has planted a curveball with his debut show, now on view in London, George Rui in 2024. Photo: Kemka Ajoku, courtesy the artist, Hannah Berry Gallery and Hauser and Wirth. Copyright George Rui. By Joe Lawson Tancred, October 9, 2024. Again and again, a group of writhing bodies becomes one indistinguishable mass in a new series of paintings by George Rui. The blur of disembodied limbs warps and fades, a shape-shifting border between the self and its surroundings that the British artist calls the bleed. If your eye is unsure where on the canvas to settle, this is intentional. Rui has removed any faces that might serve as an anchor point, an easy distraction from the composition's more carnal implications. The cited historical precedent is Theodor Géricault's The Raft of the Medusa, 1818-19, for how it captures chaos, all aspects of human nature, a feeling of being stranded, yet the vibrant palette also hints at the sensual excesses of Francois Boucher. 15 seconds, elapsed time. 15 seconds. Powered by Celtra. 0. Scroll to continue with content. Rui, aged 30, has become a stealth ultra contemporary star in recent years, with an auction record of £162,540, $195,619, set at Christie's London in March 2023. 2. When you choose Tiffany & Company, you become a valued member of the Tiffany family. Since 1837, we've prided ourselves on providing premium service, a tradition that continues to this day. Every Tiffany & Company purchase will arrive wrapped in a Tiffany blue box registered. Though this famed packaging dates to 1886, Today all blue boxes and bags are made with paper from sustainable sources and recycled materials. Between October 15th, 2024 and October 14th, 2026, Tiffany & Company will contribute $100 or $200 for every T-Smile by Tiffany cord bracelet sold in participating jurisdictions, depending on the piece, to the Nature Conservancy for a minimum global contribution of $1 million. The Conservancy's mission is to conserve the lands and waters on which all life depends. More information about the Conservancy is available by mail at 4245 N Fairfax Drive, Suite 100, Arlington, Virginia 22203, USA, by phone at 800-628-6860 or at nature.org. Charity registration number 66,007,778 in the District of Columbia, USA. Behind the design T by Tiffany's clean, graphic lines are an exercise in precision and refinement, each 90-degree angle formed by our master craftspeople in a swift, exacting motion. Explore the story.
An homage to an iconic motif from 1975, inspired by New York. An expression of love's endless potential. T by Tiffany. An homage to an iconic motif from 1975, inspired by New York. An expression of love's endless potential. T by Tiffany. An homage to an iconic motif from 1975, inspired by New York. An expression of love's endless potential. T by Tiffany. An homage to an iconic motif from 1975, inspired by New York. An expression of love's endless potential. T by Jean Schlumberger in 1959. A feat of ingenuity and technical artistry. An expression of love's nurturing forces. 16 Stone by Tiffany, designed by Jean Schlumberger in 1959. A feat of ingenuity and technical artistry. An expression of love's nurturing forces. 16 Stone by Tiffany, designed by Jean Schlumberger in 1959. A feat of ingenuity and technical artistry. An expression of love's nurturing forces. 16 Stone by Tiffany, designed by Jean Schlumberger in 1959. A feat of ingenuity and technical artistry. An expression of love's nurturing forces. 16 Stone by Tiffany, designed by Jean Schlumberger in 1959. A feat of ingenuity and technical artistry. An expression of love's nurturing forces. 16 Stone by Tiffany, designed by Jean Schlumberger in 1959. A feat of ingenuity and technical artistry. An expression of love's nurturing forces.
negative, dark, divisive, dangerous vision and behavior of people who support Donald Trump. It is time for us to say no. We are not going backwards. We're going forward.
Should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again. Never again.
To compensate for the loss of the early access period, the cost is being reduced. Instead of going for $280 as it was originally priced, the collector's edition will sell for $230, a pretty deep cut for what I would say is a relatively minor loss. Latest videos from PCGAM.
We're all busy. Busy taking notes and busy making notes and busy turning long-winded summaries into something a little more digestible, please. Busy closing loops and busy writing back, busy crafting the perfect response, busy replying, oh. Busy optimizing, synthesizing, onboarding, offloading. We're all just so busy.
Top 100 greatest games rated by us, the team at PC Gamer. We're looking at the top 10. Continuing our list is number 7, Half-Life 2. Our UK editor-in-chief Phil Savage says it's nearly 2 decades old, but Half-Life 2 is still one of the best FPS campaigns ever made. With a realistic 3D environment that saw players a vast elaborate revolutionary physics engine that turned every object in-game into a potential weapon. Half-Life 2 reshaped PC gaming. With Steam being the powerhouse that it is, Half-Life 2 was the carrot Valve used to establish the Steam platform and usher in a digital distribution model that would change PC gaming forever. I'm Midas, and tomorrow we'll discuss number 6. Can you guess what game it is?
estimates to fetch $48,728 and $61,428 respectively. Address, PlayStation Creative, formerly Bungie Creative Studios, will continue to work on Destiny 2 and Marathon, as well as all over Sony Live Service games. Sony's assimilation of Destiny 2 studio Bungie took another step forward today with the announcement that for directing and developing the artistic vision and branding of Bungie games is now fully a part of PlayStation Studios. In some ways, the change has been a long time coming. Sony's acquisition of Bungie in 2022 was driven in part by a desire for the expertise and technology that Bungie has developed in the live game services space, which Sony wanted to incorporate in its own studios. Bungie's influence was subsequently seen in the decision to delay, and eventually cancel, a Last of Us multiplayer game after Bungie, which had been asked to give the game a look-see, expressed doubts about its viability. But the Bloom spin-off Bungie's rose for a while now, and Chairman Hiroki Totoki expressed irritation with Bungie leadership earlier this year, saying he wanted to see more accountability for development budgets and schedules, and Bungie's off of 220 employees in July. Bungie CEO Pete Parsons announced that another 155 employees, representing about 12% of the studio's employees, would be moved to Sony. Another incubation project at Bungie is also being spun off into a new PlayStation studio, separate from Bungie. %. Gamer. Com, secure and validated. Disco successors, Deadlock, Diablo 4, satisfactory. Netflix's big-time gaming ambitions seem to have hit a slippery patch, as Gamifile reports that the internal studio known as Team Blue has been closed. Team Blue was revealed, without the catchy name, in October 2022, and appeared to signify a real escalation of Netflix's gaming ambitions. The company said in 2021 that its move into gaming would be focused primarily on mobile games, but a year later it was seriously exploring cloud gaming and hiring some big names for its second internal studio, including former Overwatch executive producer Chaco Sunny as studio head. former Halo Infinite creative lead Joseph Staten, and former Sony Santa Monica art director Rafał Grassetti. Team Blue was revealed, without the catchy name, in October 2022, and appeared to signify a real escalation of Netflix's gaming ambitions. The company said in 2021 that its move into gaming would be focused primarily on mobile games, but a year later it was seriously exploring cloud gaming and hiring some big names for its second internal studio, including former Overwatch executive producer Chaco Sonia studio head, former Halo Infinite creative lead Joseph Staten, and former Sony Santa Monica art director Rafał Grassetti. Mike Verdu, then serving as vice president of gaming at Netflix, said when the studio was announced that you don't get people like Sony coming to your organization to build the next big thing in gaming unless there's a sense that we're really in it for the long haul. Those words, unfortunately, proved to be the opposite of prophetic. The project never saw the light of day and all three executives are no longer with the company, according to the report. Was Shop Now a reason for the closure wasn't provided, but it feels rather sudden. Former Blizzard and Bungie design lead Gavin Irby, who joined the studio in October 2023, shared a job listing for a senior technical designer at the studio on LinkedIn just 2 months ago. But there have been some recent changes at the top. Elaine Taskin, previously the executive vice president of game development at Epic, joined Netflix in July as its new president of games, while Verdu moved to a new role focusing on transformative innovation in game creation and development, whatever that means. The decrease in latency, although not statistically significant, and statistically significant increase in energy of alpha frequency indicates that 432 music hertz frequency music has some significant relaxing effect on the sleeping brain and equivocal effect upon the sleep latency, especially among the individuals with This session has a runtime of 2 hours and is located at 963 Hz, a well-known solfeggio frequency. This solfeggio frequency is also called the frequency of divide harmony. This is, however, not a scientific explanation but is based on the experience of many listeners of this frequency.